and I share few slides as presentation. So welcome to the second imPURE webinar. This webinar will be dedicated to fast-track modular mold development, so the activities that are being developed within the project, and metal additive manufacturing for IM molds manufacturing. So just a few notes about the webinar. It will be held today from 10 to 12, and you can see here the agenda that has been circulated. The imPURE webinar is a funded project with aim to create medical supplies to injection molding system enabled by additive manufacturing. And this responded to one of the special call of the European Commission in order to tackle and prevent COVID with protective medical supplies. Therefore, we have developed a series of webinars in order to open to external stakeholders the activities that have been developed within the project, which will be our results. Sorry, I see that. You should see now correctly, right? Okay. So, as said, we would like to open our activities also to external stakeholders in order to have the community involved, specifically to medical device manufacturers and distributors, but all those that are involved in the supply chain that deals with critical medical supplies. As we have seen that in the past years, we had some difficulties in the repairment of these supplies. So the webinar of today will focus on fast-track modular mold development and additive manufacturing. We will hear several presentations from our project partners that will give some specific focuses on the activities that they are going on and they are taking over within the project activities. The project will end this May, and we will have other two webinars that will be organized in the coming months. So we will, of course, share the information, but just take this as a sort of story of our activities that are being developed within the project, as we would like to open, as said, to external stakeholders and engage them till the end of the project in the activities that are being developed, since this is a critical topic these days, these months, and we would like to have as much feedbacks as possible. Just some information on the stakeholders that registered for today. We have several organizations, several industries that are being involved in the medical and pharmaceutical topics and sectors. You see here a list of those that have been registered for the webinar today, so I'm really happy to welcome them today. We have Microport Zermatt, Dublin City University, Solid Work Group, Roland DG, Trentino Sviluppo, INTM, D3D Additive Manufacturing Solutions, Tocchiero, Crea 3D, Sector Consultants, and Master Dome. So we are really happy to have you here, and we will more than happy to have your feedbacks on those that partners will present as activities that have been taken over within the project activities. Just some notes, the video, has said, is being recorded. We will hear presentations of 10 minutes, and we will have a last 30 minutes, which will be open for questions from the audience. So you will be able to interact with the speakers. I just suggest that while the speakers present and you have questions, you can write them in the chat so that we can collect them in the end in order to have the speakers replying to your questions. And this is just my email, and for any question I'm available. I would like also to thank Alberto Nicolini for the co-organization of the webinar and for the scientific coordinator, which is NTUA, which is guide us through the activities of the project, and also as support for the organization of the series of webinars. So welcome again. I would like now to give the floor to Giulia Sala, which will give us an introduction on elastometers world of equipment with interchangeable cavities obtained from Fast Modular. So Giulia, can you hear us right?
Yes.
Perfect. Would you like to share the screen or? Perfect.
Can you see right?
We can see it, yes.
Okay, perfect. Good morning to everyone, first of all. And I'm Giulia, and I work in Steel Gomma. We are a company that produce and design and produce rubber technical parts. We use rubber and silicon, and within in this project, we are studying with our partners. The Our aim is to put the technology of modular molds in the world of the elastomers, such as rubber and silicon. This type of technology is already present in the plastic world, but it was never used in the world of elastomers due, let's say, due to technical problems. In fact, producing parts with rubber and silicon means make a irreversible transformation, so a permanent change in the chemical composition of the material, and not just a change in the status of the material. And so that's why this type of technology, which could help a lot the production, is not already used. With all the partners, especially NT and NU, we are trying to use this type of technology, and we are going to reach the goal. This type of mold, so base mold plus cavities produced by 3D additive manufacturing, has to have also particular channels in order to avoid and to make the gases go out due to this transformation, irreversible transformation that I explained before. As I said, the goal of the project is to demonstrate that the use of mold with interchangeable cavities can be made easily and quickly, and therefore can be useful if, for example, we will be in another emergency case in which we will need to produce something new using just some days and not weeks as the normal activities. The goal is to have always base mold produced by machining, always ready and available, and produce just the cavities with the metal additive manufacturing in order to be able to produce parts very quickly. Let's say the positive point regarding a metal additive manufacturing cavity is the time. In fact, with this technology, we can produce cavities and what we need very quickly. We use to demonstrate this and to use this for the first time in the elastomers world, we use the case study of the bergamot, which is a mask that we produced during the first emergency period in March 2020. Here there is the CAD, the images of the model of the base mold, in which there is the cavity, the space ready to, in which we will put the cavity produced by 3D additive manufacturing. In this case, we use just one cavity, but this base mold is already ready for a second cavity in order during the project to produce another component. This is the cavity produced by additive manufacturing, and we will put this cavity inside the base mold in order to produce the parts. This mold test will be done in the next weeks. So in the next webinar, we will be able to share also the results and to share which are the points that we have to optimize in order to make this work quicker. Thanks for your attention. This is my email, and I'm always available for any type of clarification or request.
Thank you very much, Giulia, for your presentation. I have just a question. Could you elaborate a bit which have been the steps since the beginning of the project till today for the development? So, few words about yes, this.
Yes, we started in the last month thinking about how to put this technology inside the rubber world. The most important critical point, in addition to the one that I said before regarding the permanent transformation, is the pressure that are needed during the injection phase in order to put the rubber inside the channels and inside the cavities. That's why with NTNU, we had to work a lot on the design of the cavity and on the material that was suitable for this aim, because if when we mold in injection with rubber, we need a lot of tons, from 100 to 300 tons of pressure in order to can put the rubber inside the cavity, because the rubber, as I said before, is not liquid. So the pressure, a really high pressure is needed. And so we study a lot. We made also with other partners a simulation of the flow of the rubber inside firstly the base mold and then to the cavity in order to achieve the best result as possible. From our experience, this is the first time that a part of a mold produced by additive manufacturing is used. So I think that we made a really important work and study till now, and then I'm really curious to see the result. Of course, there are a lot of our other points that are critical in the rubber world, such as the burrs and as I said before, the flow of the gases inside the mold. And so I think that after this first trial, we will need some optimization, but we make a base mold with a second cavity available in order to, if needed, make a new cavity with the optimizations that we saw during the next test mold. But I'm positive because we made a really hard work in these months, and so I think that we can achieve this result. And achieving this result means that in the future, each injection molding rubber company would be able to repropose their line using this quick technology in order to produce something for emergency cases or also for other situations in which the time is, let's say, the first important thing.
Thank you very much, Julia. Of course, we will show the results at the end of the project and also in the upcoming webinars to update also our external stakeholders with the advancement of project activities. I remind that if any of you have questions, you can post them in the chat and then we will take them in the last session dedicated to the question and answers. So please, for any speaker, if you have any question on the presentation, you can write them in the chat and then we will take them at the end. So our next speaker is Dimitri Ladikos from Producta. He will give us a presentation on conversion of existing mold in a modular die for the production of mask filter holder. So welcome, Dimitri. I'll share your presentation. So just give me a second. We cannot hear you speaking, so if you can unmute your microphone.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. First of all, I would like to thank you for this opportunity to expose and explain our work in this part of imPURE project, which is focused on the realization of the filter holder for Bergamask. The main goal of imPURE project is to realize a quick and lean production for the realization of the components of the Bergamask and for Bergamask itself. So using existing production line and existing toolings that could be quickly adequate and modified for the production of these elements. According to this most important object of the project, we have evaluated with the other partners the Bergamask technical drawings and the Bergamask components, and we have projected with Steel Gomma and the other partners involved the components according to our part. So specifically the filter holders for the Bergamask. After the projecting the realized drawings, technical drawings, we have proceeded with our technical department to individuate and find a base mold that could be modified and adjusted in order to obtain a cavity, in which cavity would be possible to insert a new mould for the realization and the production of the filter. This action have given the possibility to make the base mold modular, and thanks to the cavity obtained, it would have been possible to realize different specific molding elements and produce in the same base mold different shapes and components. In this case, after the applied modification as is indicated in the slides on the existing base mold modified adequately, then we have realized a prototype cavity and mold for the filter holder in order to obtain some prototypes. After the prototypes obtained and the good results approved by our technical department, we have proceeded with the other partners to realize the specific mold for the filter, as indicated in the slides. So we have proceeded in the last part to take this element, put the die in the base mold that have been modular, and in this case have the complete mold for the realization of the filter holder that we have produced the first production lots, and we have obtained the components of our part. So it was a very interesting work and a very interesting project for this element, because it has given us the possibility to find another important technology and develop it on the projecting and construction of molding die. In this case, using existing molding base, making them modular and give the possibility to have a production more quick, more elastic and more flexible in order to find the different needs of the market. In this case, the urgency and the need for components, medical components for the COVID pandemic. This project in this specific case have been completed, and so I'm here for any other question. Only a small focused that during this year we have faced on. Now the problem is not the possibility to product, but the possibility to find the materials and the polymers for the realization of the components, because all the chemical purchase chain is under pressure. For any other question, I'm here for
Thank you, Dimitri.
your needs.
One question from my side, just quick. How is the market concerning the supply of material needed?
At the moment, because of the high increase of demand of products, there is a very critical pressure on the possibility to purchase and to find materials available for production. As we have seen, these have caused a big increase on quotations and a big delay on deliveries, but there is a lack of production, specifically from the big producers of polymers, of chemical polymers. And this pressure will continue for the next years, I mean, because it is not so simple to increase the production of chemical products, and the new plant requires more than 1 year to be set up and starting an industrial production. So I think this critical pressure on prices, quotations, and on production will continue for surely all this year and probably part of next.
Thank you, Dimitri. I think that on this point, we can gather several feedbacks on difficulties.
Probably a very important point of imPURE project is the recycling of material, because recycling material and use it again on production is not only so good and very important for environmental questions, but even during periods of like this, with lack of raw materials and polymers, have the possibility to develop and use scraps. It is now strategic. I mean, the scraps are now considered something with value, because using them reduce the needs of new products and give the possibility to production to find more needs of demand.
Thank you. I encourage also other attendees, if they have similar opinions and questions, to write them in the chat so that we can discuss them together later. Thank you, Dimitri. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I would like now to give the floor to Song Yang from the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow, which will give us a presentation on modular mold design and development. So, Song, you can share your screen.
Okay.
Perfect. We can see them.
that.
Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Song Yang, and today I'm going to introduce the modular mold design and development. So we are taking the oximeter as a product demonstration. So the design of the modular mold inserts and the mold size will follow the idea of materials stock minimization, faster changeover, and flexibility in production. So the modular parts must share main mold structure, injection system, hot or cold running system, cooling system, in and out circulation system, tightening and guiding system, etc. Also, the system has to be easy for assembly. So the mold design was based on the interchangeable mold system. Each modular mold is comprising of core and cavity inserts, integral cooling system, and the ejector system. So all of which will be interchangeable into a master mold. On the fixed side of the master mold, the location ring is designed to locate mold tool in machine press and access for machine injection nozzle. And the insulating plate is to retain and control mold tool temperature. Then the top clamp plate is designed to clamp cavity side of the mold tool to press platen. Besides that, the cavity booster plate can help to retain and support.
Yes, on the presentation is not showed anywhere. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Can you see that now?
Yes, so we
Okay,
can.
yeah. Just continue. So the cavity booster plate can help to retain and support the main cavity insert and the mold-based components. And the 4 leader pins are designed for accurate guiding of the mold tool halves. So on the moving side, the guide bushes work with the leader pins, and then the core booster plate is also to retain and support main cavity insert and the mold-based components. The riser elements generate an area to allow ejector plate to move by a predetermined amount for ejection of molded components. So at last, the bottom clamped plate is designed to clamp the core side of mold to press platen. So we also designed the water connection fitment to connect the water channel from the inserts. So the mold inserts consist of cavity insert and the core insert with integral cooling. Other parts include the ejector system for demolding of the injected components, the sliding core with integral cooling channels, and the sliding core guidance rails, and also the angle pin for sliding core movement. Here shows a clear section view of the final mold assembly. So 3 injection mold tools are required to be designed in this project for the oximeter. So they are the oximeter case, the lid and glass holder, and the oximeter overmolding tool. Here we take the overmolding modular mold system as an example. So the sprue bushing is for the injection of the polymer. Then the heel locating insert helps with locking a sliding core in closed position. The angle pin can provide guidance at the movement of the sliding core. And the sliding core is designed for the forming of internal part details, undercuts, and all details which cannot be formed in direction of mold to opening. For the ejection system, the ejection guidance pillar enables the smooth guidance of ejection assembly. While the ejection limit stop helps to limit the travel stroke of the ejector plate assembly. Then the ejection pins are used to eject the molded part and the runner from the core insert. And to retain headed ejector pins, ejector plate assembly is designed here. At last, the ejection coupling is designed to connect the ejector plate to the machine ram. So in the following slides, I'll show you the design of the 3 injection mold tool. The difference is mainly about the mold insert system, because the master mold can be interchangeable. So the first is a general view of the oximeter main case mold tool, and you can see the details of the core insert in the movable master mold. The water connection pipes here can connect to the water connector fitment here. So the tooling has been designed to allow placement of Kessler dye sensors to be mounted at the end of the cavity as shown here, and it will be removed with the modular insert. So then the motto of the oximeter lid and glass holder design are shown here, and the lid can close the oximeter case, while the glass holder will be located on the printed circuit board to help reflect and receive the signal. Finally, the designs of the rubber overmolding tool is shown here, and this is the core insert with the internal cooling channel, and also the cavity insert. At last, here are some pictures of the oximeter from the production trial. We have the case and the lid, and also we have the glass holder inside the case. The rubber is overmolded, and we can see that the designs of the modular mold system works perfectly in the injection molding process, including the overmolding. So thanks Grim from Pascal Engineering, and he is the one who worked on the design and the development of the modular mold system. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you very much, Song, for the clear presentation. Again, I remind that for any question on this presentation and the others, you can post them in the chat and then we will collect them. Thank you very much. Thank you. We pass now to the fourth speaker of the day, which is Panagiotis Zoboulis from BioG3D, which will give us a presentation on rapid and cost-effective production of mold components through VPP technology for short-run injection molding. So
Hello, everyone.
Panagiotis, hello.
Yes.
Good morning. The floor is
Please
yours. You
give
can share
me.
the screen.
Yes, allow me to share my screen. Okay. So this
Perfect.
is
We can
visible.
see it
Can you all
properly.
see it?
Yes.
Okay. So, as you mentioned, the title is the rapid and cost-effective production of mold components through bath photopolymerization 3D printing technology, aimed to be implemented for short-run injection molding. So, for our external attendees, allow me to say a few words about our company, a very brief introduction. We're BioG3D, a small R&D company dedicated to innovative 3D printing solutions and the optimization of smart and customized products. We're based in Lavrion Technological and Cultural Park in Athens, Greece, and our mission is to unravel the potential of digital manufacturing by utilizing advanced feedstock materials and cutting-edge physical and digital tools to optimize designs, adopting a holistic approach for the fabrication of new products. We want to boost up the personalized fabrication and make smart materials easily accessible and widely accepted. Our main areas of activity can be summarized in the chart. We develop our own materials to be used as feedstock for 3D printing. We perform 3D printing using various machines. And we also do computational design and analysis. We employ reverse engineering techniques, and we also possess a state-of-the-art cell culture lab for in vitro testing, diagnostic and pharmaceuticals, material cytotoxicity, and other such operations. So now let's move over to injection molding. This is an even shorter introduction. As we all know, it is a process that is oriented for mass production, aiming to produce thousands to millions of parts per mold. It's very high accuracy, at least micron level accuracy, and it is able to produce complex shaped objects with multiple features and with compatibility with multiple materials also, as Song Yang mentioned earlier, with overmolding perhaps. Though with regard to the tools of the components that constitute the injection mold, we can generally talk about two categories. The hard tooling, the tools made by tool steel and nickel alloys that have the highest durability and very tight tolerances used for long-run production, and the soft tooling, often made by aluminum, with lower durability. They're faster to deploy, but also have a smaller life expectancy. And the two main methods to produce those tools are CNC milling, computer-controlled machining for material removal, and also electric discharge machining, or EDM, the short term, that uses electric discharges to remove material and form highly accurate cavities. So as versatile as this technology can be, there are some limitations to the traditional injection molding tooling fabrication. For the mold development itself, it is a very demanding process, high cost, tens of thousands per mold, often very time consuming. For hard tooling, it can be weeks to months, and for soft toolings, at least a couple of weeks. And there's also high risk for design errors or the requirement for a redesign iteration in order to optimize a part of the mold. So let's move over to additive manufacturing. I believe most in this webinar are familiar with additive manufacturing or 3D printing, but for those who do not have a very clear grasp, it's a manufacturing method for the fabrication of 3D structures by targeted layering of materials with regard to a predetermined digital model. You make a digital model, a CAD model for short, you export it, you slice it in very thin layers, and then you translate these layers to material deposition by using specialized equipment. It's a disruptive, advanced manufacturing systems technology that exhibits great potential to change everything in manufacturing, from our daily lives to the global economy. And the question rises here, can additive manufacturing be used as an alternative to injection molding? The short answer, I believe, is not currently. While additive manufacturing can be used to produce complex geometries and intricate internal configurations, perhaps, perplex features, variable infill options, and also is compatible with a wide variety of materials with distinct mechanical and thermal properties, the production capacity is very low, suitable for more for small number of prototypes and not for production. And there are also limitations with regard to surface finish and achieving tight tolerances or some feature size resolution. But we could use the 3D printing. How about using it to fabricate the injection molding tools themselves? We have a low relative cost to produce a tool by 3D printing against milling or EDM. We have faster lead times, and we can also achieve some complex tooling geometries that are normally unobtainable by means of conventional milling processes. For example, conformal internal cooling channels. It could be suitable for short production runs where speed, fast tracking of the whole process is of the essence, and it could also be the missing link between producing a small number of 3D printed prototypes and fabricating the metal soft tooling itself. So I will talk about a specific 3D printing technology, which is the VAT photopolymerization process. It's a 3D printing technique where the feedstock material is in a liquid resin form and is solidified using a laser point or projected light image. It is a method that produces parts with high accuracy and very good surface finish. It uses thermosetting materials, some of which exhibit a very good resistance to high temperatures, which is a very nice feature to have when we talk about injection molding. And these materials also are compatible with machining for finishing. The materials are generally acrylate and epoxy-based photopolymers that are also infused with various additives for variation of the properties. So, about BioG3D's role in imPURE. As you know, imPURE's goal is the repurposing and digital transformation of plastic processing industrial lines in Europe. It focuses on injection molding for the production of critical medical consumables, and the aim is to reduce turnaround time from 3 weeks to 48 hours, for example. Our role in this is to fabricate hybrid ceramic modular mold inserts for fast-track repurposing of injection molding production lines for the production of the oximeter. It is the tool that Song Yang talked in the previous presentation. Allow me to show you a small animation. This is the design of a part of the oximeter mold designed by Pasco. As you can see, we have two parts that form the cavity, the casing of the oximeter, and a side core that slides horizontally into the mold in order to produce the internal configuration. So we take this part, the twin side core insert, and we are to fabricate it using a hybrid ceramic material that exhibits high thermal stability and very good thermal qualities, that has also by design internal cooling channels. You can see here the component animated. And let's talk about the material for a minute. We use high temperature stereolithography resin. Stereolithography is a VAT photopolymerization process that uses a laser point to solidify the material. It has a heat deflection temperature over 280 degrees. That means that it is a material that is suitable to operate up to that temperature, a very rigid and hard material that can be printed with high printing resolutions up to 25 micrometers. We have added a ceramic additive, aluminum oxide nanopowder, that helps preserve and enhance the thermal and dimensional stability of the printed components. So, about the process. The special attention was given to part orientation in order to achieve optimal results, support structures that are critical for the correct printing, efficient printing that the supports must be designed appropriately in order to keep them away from sensitive features. And some compensation scaling factors must be applied in order to compensate for potential shrinkage during solidification of the material. Also, some bulk geometry requires hollowing in order to prevent distortions, warping during the post-processing of the part, always with consideration to retain the mechanical integrity. After printing, we have a thorough post-processing protocol that must be adhered to. We have cleaning using a solvent to remove residue of uncured resin, and UV and thermal curing in order for the part to achieve its final qualities. Support structures must be removed with great care and the support tips on the part must also be sanded down in order to not leave any geometry defects. And also the surface must be treated using a deep coating technique, mechanical sanding, and some release agents must be applied in order to optimize the compatibility with the mold. So some remarks and some pictures here. We produced this part, the white part on all three pictures, the double insert, the side core insert. It is a component that costs around 140 euros, and the fabrication time is, as you can see, 16 hours to print, 5 hours to post-cure, and 3 hours to post-process afterwards, leading to a total of 24 hours. If we were to print more of that component, we could use more printers to work in tandem, and that would lead the whole process up to 48 hours around, which is within the scope of the project. Some areas for future improvement that are also the challenges that we encountered. It's the achieving tight tolerances for the assembly of the mold, the thermal conductivity of the mold material that is required for cooling of the injected part, the potential release issues of the injected component due to the affinity that the polymer might have with the mold insert, and the durability of the insert itself that prevents its use for long-run production. So this concludes my presentation. I would like to thank you very much for your attention. And if you have any questions, I will be very happy to answer them.
Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. I'm sure that we will have some questions for these topics that have been presented. So thank you very much, Panagiotis.
You're
We
welcome.
now proceed with our fifth speaker of the day, which is Piero Camurati from SIDAM. He will give us a presentation on market readiness provided by innovative molding techniques. Piero, good morning. The floor is yours.
Good morning.
You can share
Good
the
morning.
screen.
Let me try to share again. And by the way, in the meantime, hello everyone. Okay. Can you see? Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I want to make an introduction. In the session today, there are basically, I would say, every speaker in this session can talk so much better than me about the molding techniques, molding activities, and everything which is related to that. So instead of jumping into very technical conversation, I thought to give just a quick and very, I would say, short introduction to the perspective that we have as a manufacturer in the potential and the impact which is coming from the things that we already seen up to now, and also the other that are going to come in the near future, because certainly this is something which is extremely important, in particular given the challenges that we face in our sector, in the let's say in the health industry in general, and in particular in the medical devices. Because as you probably know, and certainly a number of people that are in this call knows quite well, we are in an environment which is challenging by itself, of course, because we are talking about a subject which is extremely important, which is the health of everyone. And we are also talking about an industry that we've seen growing and developing a lot in the last years in a very significant way, but also with a number of challenges that has been made partially because of the regulation, So the recent introduction of a new regulation since last year, 2 years ago actually now, has been placing a significant burden on in terms of being or finding ways to be compliant with that, and certainly additional cost. And in addition to that, the other major issue that we currently see in the market is about cost of raw material, availability of raw material, particularly in the last 6, 8 months has been really significant. And so the point is also, how can we leverage technologies and improvement? And I would also say, in particular, due to the companies that are part of this joint activity and joint effort, the possibility to leverage synergies among a number of partners across Europe. So the reason is also because, as we've seen in the past, you can really and quickly find yourself in a situation where there is a lack, not only of raw material, but because of that also of the final product. And in particular, that could also come not only because of availability, but also because of logistic issues, because of we currently see lack of personnel because of the pandemic, and that create challenges in, for example, in having people that are able to transport the goods. So this scenario changed continuously, very fast, and the flexibility and the fast reaction are certainly a key. And a very important tool in order to respond to that to those changes. So in the list of requirements that I was listing here, that of course are very generic and certainly not only related to this specific type of technology, can see answers coming from these technologies, which is, of course, in general related to availability of material. If you're able to produce more fastly and more efficiently, certainly yes. Encourage innovation across the industry, which is extremely important, in particular now. Something which is also very specific about the health environment is about the possibility to cover niches. Because as we know, there are certainly a very good number of, different type of issues that people can have that are not mainstream, so very specific disease, or eventually also very specific type of intervention that are needed, that the clinician are needed. And that those can be covered by a close cooperation between small industries and the health personnel that can cooperate. But of course, in order to do that, again, you need to be flexible, fast, and cost effective in order to provide something in a still, let's say, win-win scenario for the producers and also for the people that are going to use those devices. And so here there is definitely some support from the technology. And also, as we've seen, now somehow the ecosystem which is working around that. And by the way, in any case, I was also willing to point out, because at the end, in order to use a mold, you have to have something to put inside the mold. And so still the topic of procurement, of supply chain, of finding what you need at the time when you need it is very important, and probably more and more it's going to become something that will need some level of, how to say, wider support within the community. And so, taking into account that the cost that every manufacturer like us, but like many other, need to take into account when they started with a new project, are mainly following in those categories. One of them that could be very significant, but potentially can be avoided, is the clinical trial. Sometimes you need to have it. Sometimes you might have a way to skip because you are doing something similar to other things that you did before. But certainly you are not going to avoid the certification, which is probably one of the most or major area of cost. And that's exactly the point. The other area, and as I think we've seen very, very well in the presentation just before me, I was looking into that with great interest because it was showing exactly how and how much can be done in order to provide support both during the design phase and also later when you are starting to get into production, because you have a possibility to reduce cost and to have more interaction while you are testing your device, while you are designing your device. And due to the fact that currently instead we are in a situation where even for a very simple and small thing that you need to produce, you have an investment which is, can easily go into the 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 euro each. So, the level of risk in that type of investment that you need to do as early as you can in order to get ready for production. But at the same time, instead, you should put as much as you can toward the end of the process, because you want to be sure that what you're going to do is the right thing to do. And so this type of challenge can be dramatically reduced by using the techniques that we've seen up to now. And so it's not only an advantage in terms of cost, but it's also, and probably I would say even more, an advantage in terms of shortening the cycle between design, optimization, test, and eventually redesign. And also in being ready in a much faster way, when, of course, you will be able really to get into the market, because, of course, you will have to get through the other cycle of the process. But certainly, this is helping, and probably, and I would say very importantly, is going to support not only big companies, but also small companies that, thanks to this, can still have a chance to get into the market in a good way. And this is probably the major outcome for a company like us and company that need to stay in the market with in a profitable way, and also to be able to keep supporting this industry. And well, that's it. Just few thoughts to share.
Thank you, Piero. Thank you very much. Indeed, the certification will be one of our last activities in the project for those PPE that are being developed. Thank you very much. Again, for any question, you can write them in the chat. While now we go forward with Torbjørn Lermo from the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. He will give us a presentation on powder bed fusion of mold inserts, a framework for rapid response manufacturing. So Torbjørn, the floor is yours. Perfect. Thank you. We can't hear you. You are muted.
There. My apologies, I started sharing my screen too early. So I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Excellent. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. I will speak today about the powder bed fusion of mold inserts, and we have developed a framework for rapid response manufacturing relative here to the imPURE project. This is with regards to task 4.3, the selection of manufacturing process and operation plan optimization with a focus on speed, which is the rapid response here. So I will first provide some background to why this is important and share some of the lessons we have learned throughout this project before I present the framework. So first of all, additive manufacturing is, like has been said earlier here, it's a great possibility for design freedom, but it also provides imposes some new design restrictions on the models, which means that we have to do some redesign and we have to actually do the entire process planning for the additive manufacturing, especially in the cases where you already have a design that you need to transfer to the additive manufacturing design paradigm. And this leads to a big need for communication between the actors, specifically in situations where you don't have these processes in-house. So there needs to be communication between the machine owner for the injection molding company, but to whoever is going to print these parts. And this is also between engineers and operators, because what seems good on the paper isn't always as good in the processing line. So what we have learned through this project is, first of all, you need to be ready for machine failures. We've had a machine breakdown, which means that if you are going to be able to respond rapidly to any kind of market intervention or to emergency situation, you should have several options available. Luckily, we also had several machines to our disposal after some rethinking. You also need to be aware of build failures. So in this picture, you can see some sink marks that came out on one of our molds. Here you can see the bergamasque, the female part of the mold, that we were going to print as a solid part. So additive manufacturing has some difficulties with very solid, dense parts. And because this is in a powder bed, it is vulnerable to sink marks where the powder is starting to sink, and this failure propagates through the powder bed, leading to these failures that we can see here. Next up, we have also seen the value of hybrid solutions, because if you are able to minimize the volume that you're going to print, you minimize both the risk and also the cost of the printing process. In this case, we have one mold made up out of one machine bottom, and we just print the top geometry, which is really the part that's going to be injection molded in the end. So this bottom part is no use to print it really, because it's just many hours of printing solid material. We've also encountered some unutilized potential. In this case, for instance, the internal cooling channels, where some conformal cooling channels could be implemented, and also by making these by additive manufacturing rather than by machining, you are also able to make the flow more even. So, for instance, here you can see how we managed to get this curved surface instead for this cooling channel, which improves the flow through the cooling channels. So, for the framework, imagine that you get this initial design, how the mold is supposed to work. And of course, first you need to do some printability analysis. say, is this possible to print? And usually, no, it isn't. So you need to do some kind of a design for additive manufacturing. This is the design paradigm for additive manufacturing that imposes some restrictions and also possibilities. So if you're able to take that into account when you do the design for additive manufacturing, then you will achieve much greater value and may also be able to reduce the processing time. So in order to make this a rapid response, you want to do this as quickly as possible. We have sketched out two lanes here. One that leads to the metal printing, which is the final part that you are going to utilize in the injection molding line, but also concurrently, you're also doing a prototype. If you have time, of course, you could do this loop to optimize the design before going to metal printing. But anyways, we propose that you should do this prototype because the metal print in powder bed fusion is quite extensive. It takes a long time. We're talking about print times from 4 to 5 days at the best for one of these molds that we've created so far. So with the prototype, doing this with polymers, you can cut this time in half, which means that you are able to do the planning for quality assurance much faster. In our case, we are using a coordinate measuring machine in order to qualify the parts to be sure that everything is on point before we ship them. And then we can program the machine using one of the prototypes before we actually get the final metal part. For this metal print lane, we propose going for metal print, and of course you need some machining first because the roughness and the tolerances of this metal print is not good enough for the injection molding machine. So we need to do some machining and eroding for the surface to be good enough for the injection mold. And this all leads to quality assurance before you can go to application. Now, as you can see, these two lanes are really the most important part of this framework, which means that this prototyping is also part of the entire processing chain. For us, we have both tried with the selective laser sintering, which is for polymer powders, and also for fused filament deposition, which is the 3D printing technique, which is much faster. We were able to get quite accurate prototype that enabled this process, this planning for quality assurance. But of course, the selective laser sintering is much closer to the metal printing, which is a better fit for actually predicting and evaluating the final properties. Now, there's also a possibility that this printability analysis shows that this part shouldn't really be printed at all. So this means that you should go straight to machining, and this gives some flexibility to the framework. But beware that if the machining is still quite extensive, you have the possibility to go through this prototyping part and be able to enhance this or do this quality assurance more swiftly after all. For instance, as I mentioned with the fused filament fabrication technique, you are able to produce a prototype within 6 to 7 hours, depending on the geometry, which means that this quality assurance can be done much quicker. And then in between, you also have the possibility that additive manufacturing gives them extra value, but it is also too time-consuming to print the entire part. This leads to this hybrid solution where you can do some metal printing and machining and do this in tandem or going back and forth really from metal printing and machining. For a powder bed fusion, this is not really a good solution, technically speaking, for traditional work, but we have actually done this in our lab where we had some issues with the print. We removed the part from the print build chamber, removed all the powder, did some machining to the part, and reintroduced the part into the build chamber to finish it off. This means that there is a potential for a hybrid solution where machining and printing can be done by powder bed fusion in this manner. Again, the prototype line is unaltered, which means that this prototyping builds on or enables the quality assurance much quicker, and especially in the hybrid solution, because this is obviously time consuming and also introduce some risk, which means that the machining option is less risky, but also it doesn't provide you the benefits and possibilities that additive manufacturing may give you. So what we have learned here are that misprints are costly, and this means that planning is absolutely crucial. And this also means that communication is key, because when you communicate properly between the different actors and between the different operators, you are able to reduce the risk and also to enable actually benefiting from the additive manufacturing. We see that hybrid manufacturing, it both reduces risk and also reduces the lead time. We have been able to make this hybrid manufacturing faster than either of the two alternatives. And we see that the rapid prototyping enables the quality assurance, so the preparations for the quality assurance. So that's all I had for you. Thank you for your attention. I just have to say that this is also done in collaboration with Professor Sotirios Grammatikos, and I hope you are able to give me some questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Torbjörn. Thank you for the presentation, and I agree that it is also important to show the lessons learned within the development of the activity, so thank you. We are now going on with our next speakers, which is Leonidas Gargolis from Quantify. He will give us a presentation on injection molding tooling, metal powder feedstock availability for additive manufacturing, and utilization of wire-based DED for rapid mold fabrication. So Leonidas.
Hello, hi everyone. Just bear
morning.
with me so I can share my screen. So just give me a minute.
In case I think I also have your presentation, so you have any trouble or problem, I can share it directly. Just let me know.
Yes, thanks for that. Still struggling to share my screen. Just a moment. If then, okay. Yes, maybe you can help me out. So Stefania, yes, please. Can you share the presentation? Unfortunately, I can't show it.
Yes, just a second that I'm opening it, and just let me know when changing slides.
My apologies for that.
It's uploading, I think, because it is a bit heavy, so. Okay, I can share it and just let me know when I have to change slide.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, here we are.
So yes, as Stefania mentioned, I'm going to talk about the, hi everyone, my name is Leonidas, first of all, and I'm going to talk about the metal powder feedstock availability for additive manufacturing and the utilization of wire-based direct energy deposition technology for rapid mold fabrication. So next slide, please. So just a quick overview. Me and my colleagues at Quantify, we looked at metal AM powder feedstock and the existing readiness and response capacity of the EU additive manufacturing metal powder supply chain. Then I'm going to talk briefly about the characterization methodology that we implement at Conify in order to screen the powders and get their characteristics. And then I will go into injection mold tooling fabrication via additive manufacturing, the wire-based direct energy deposition technology and the principles, and of course our test case in this work package for repurposing existing injection molding lines tooling via wire DD. So next slide, thank you. So in terms of the material selection for injection mold tooling, there are several important factors that we need to take under consideration when we want to choose a suitable material for injection mold fabrication. Some of the main factors are cost efficiency, product specifications, the number of products that need to be produced, so low versus high volume production, the degree of the injection pressure, and of course the materials wear and corrosion resistance, as well as the materials mechanical properties. So some of the materials that I think were also mentioned earlier by other speakers are for injection molding is aluminium, which is for soft tooling. It's light, functional, and durable, and it's a relatively inexpensive material that suits a lot of production of molds for low volume manufacturing due to its relatively low hardness. And of course, there's martensitic stainless steel, which is harder in comparison to aluminium. And the martensitic stainless steel is widely used in the mold making industry today, and it is a potential choice. And then, of course, tool steel, which has the highest hardness, and of course, it's the strongest one out of the three material options. And it's specifically designed for high volume, long-term production runs. And you can see a table at the bottom of the slide with the suggested materials for mold fabrication and imPURE, and their availability as a metal powder. So next slide, please. We wanted to responsible essentially for the powder procurement study, and we wanted to analyze the readiness and the response capacity within the EU, specifically with a focus on the metal powder supply chain. So we created this chart based on some of the remarks and the analysis we did for the response capacity. Mainly for commercially available tool steel AM powders during COVID-19. So we noticed that there was, first of all, the chart shows the different factors. So response capacity, material availability, minimum order quantity, shipping time, and costs. These were the main parameters we examined. And we observed that there was a lag in the response from some powder providers, a long waiting time until the materials are available for shipment. Of course, the availability of the material might also change during the communication period with the supplier and the procurement of the powder. And there's limited readily available information on materials on stock. So the specifications, according to the technical data sheets per producer, can vary significantly, even for the same alloy, for example, for the same tool steel, for example. And the standards applied for assessing key quality characteristics of the powders are not always mentioned, which is also an important factor when you want to have quality parts, and you need, of course, your feedstock material to be of certain standards. And especially in the case of P20 steel, powder availability was extremely limited. So we did that based on different suppliers for different tool steel and managing steels. So next slide, please. So some of the methods that we use in order to assess the characteristics of our feedstock material is the so we look into particular properties such as the shape and the size, into the chemical composition and the purity of the powder that we purchase. And of course, we look at the bulk properties such as tap and apparent density, the flowability, and of course, you can see on the right-hand side at the table all the different ASTM-based characterization methods that we run in-house in order to assess and screen all the different materials, all the different powder feedstocks. So, as I said, we look into particulate properties, the chemical composition, the bulk properties, and essentially the cleanliness of the powders. We look into shape and morphology extensively, such as the circularity, the convexity, and the aspect ratio, for example, of the particles. So next slide, please, Stefania. So this is the overall workflow of the powder. So we procure powders with their technical data sheets. We store the powder if the material is virgin. If not, then we have to sieve the powder. If it's used, we have to know how many cycles, in how many cycles it has been used. And then we do our sampling based on an automatic rifler. And in step 3, we run our analytical techniques and we run our experiments in order to define the apparent tap density, the flowability, the morphology, and the particle size distribution. And of course, we've in cross-section powders in order to observe their microstructure and if they have any internal gas pores from the atomization process, for example. So the next step is to mix and sieve the powders, virgin and used, if necessary, and then repeat steps 1 and 2. Of course, for the additive manufacturing process, depending on the powder, we might even preheat it before the additive manufacturing process. And then, of course, the printing takes place, and we extract our powder from the printer for the recycle procedure to be repeated. So next slide, please. Here are some characteristic results from 2 different powders. In this case, Sandvik and JKN Additive were the suppliers of AZ420 powder. You can see SEM micrographs of both powders, and some of the characteristics of the morphology and the shape, such as the high sensitivity, circularity, and the circle equivalent diameter. And of course, as mentioned earlier, results on apparent and tap density, on the flowability, and the particle size distribution with D10, D50, and D90 values shown in the table. Next slide, please, Stefania. Also, what we do in-house is an automatic statistical quality assessment of the powder particles. We do that in 2 ways. First of all, we can use our SEM microscope in order to acquire the different particles and analyze their shape and morphology. But we also develop another tool in collaboration with IRIS, which is based on machine learning in order to basically analyze statistically the powder particles and give useful information based on on just a single image of the powder particles. So a lot of characterization there for the powder materials. So next slide, please. So the next step was to look into the actual mold fabrication via additive manufacturing, and in our case, we were interested in the mold core and the mold cavity. So our goal was to take advantage of the freedom of design that additive manufacturing has to offer, and specifically with DD, we can manufacture big, more bulky parts, at least when compared to laser powder bed fusion, for example, or in general powder bed fusion additive manufacturing. So we can exploit this freedom of design in order to create, for example, conformal cooling channels And as you can see in the image here, you have both the cavity and the core. And essentially, you can take advantage of conformal cooling based on the freedom of design that AM has to offer, and create some innovative solutions and designs that might be efficient for the fabrication of molds. So in our case, next slide, please, Stefania. We have an in-house wire-based direct energy deposition system. What we do essentially is we use a laser beam in order to melt wire material that is fitted coaxially from the head to the substrate. The laser creates the melt pool, and essentially we deposit weld truck every time, essentially every layer by layer, until we can complete our 3D printed part. So the flow chart in this process is that we create a 3D CAD model, then we convert that to an STL model. We use our slicing software, which in turn converts the STL model into G-code language. And then, of course, we can essentially transfer that to our machine, and we can start the part fabrication. So can you play this little video, Stefania, down the right? Yes. So this is an example of the wire DD process. In this case, this is a nozzle. So this is how the process works. The deposited material is melted in the melt pool by the laser, and layer by layer, as every time we move our layer one step lower, we deposit more and more material on top until the final part is completed. So next slide, please. Konify's approach is, as mentioned earlier by the other panelists, we have a hybrid approach. So what we're trying to do is to combine direct energy deposition and CC machining and injection mold tool making. And essentially, we start from design for additive manufacturing, and we did our own process development, material development in-house in order to process stainless steel 420 that guarantees a fully dense 3D printed mold core and cavity inserts that can achieve essentially mechanical properties that are comparable to routes or metal injection molding materials. So we found out that essentially we need 50% less in the production time. And we all know that plastic injection mold tooling is a lengthy process, and it can take up to a few months from design to delivery. And on the right-hand side image, you can see one half of the direct energy deposited injection mold tool. And on the left-hand side, there's the oximeter prototype that was produced by our colleagues and partners. So next slide, please, Stefania. So these are this is our case. We try to repurpose the existing injection molding line tooling via wire DD in the case of the oximeter. So you can see the final designs for the oximeter case mold for the cavity insert and the fingertip rubber overmold tool. There were some design modifications necessary to be done. So again, we come down to design for additive manufacturing. Either depending on the technology, the additive manufacturing technology applied, or by the system, there are certain limitations, as in every manufacturing method. So in this case, we had to remove the cooling channels, remove some high complex fixtures that exceeded the 3D printer's deposition tolerance. We had to add a couple of millimeter offset on all sides and cavities in order to ensure that there is enough tolerance for machining later on. And we had to redesign some of the non-planar surfaces in the horizontal plane. We were limited because of the wire diameter, of course, so there are, technical specifications that might limit the accuracy and the resolution of some of the builds. So next slide, please. However, we used our wire DD system to produce the oximeter case molds with a lot of success. So we used a mild steel substrate. We had argon as an inert gas in our build chamber, and we used a zigzag scanning strategy, printing strategy to deposit the material in order to avoid warping or cracking or any other defects that could cause failure of our build. So yeah, both mold tools were built successfully. So if we can go to the next slide, please, Stefania. And as you can see here, the oximeter case mold was produced from 420 stainless steel. It weighs approximately 2 kilos, and it was completed in 10 hours and 30 minutes, more or less. We had a good surface finish, and yeah, we were really happy and satisfied with the end result. Next slide, please. So this is the oximeter case mold tool. So again, approximately 2 kilos, 10.5 hours. And you can see the different features and the holes. We achieved a good surface finish again, and a defect-free 3D printed part. So that was another big success story for us. So next slide, please. And this is the oximeter's fingertip rubber overmold tool. Again, approximately 10 hours. So as you can understand, it takes basically half a day to produce one of these molds. So, you know, this brings a lot of speed, let's say, into the process of designing and producing new inserts, new molds. So yeah, this is the advantage that rapid prototyping brings into the injection molding tooling industry and in the injection molding lines. This rapid response and essentially the ability to create really fast prototypes to test the tooling and the line. So yeah, next slide, Stefania. And I think this is the last one. I think this is the oximeter fingertip rubber overmold tool again. It's the core insert with the weight again of 2.5 kilos roughly, and again 10 hours and 40 minutes were required to print this this insert. So yes. As we know, we said that we adapted the hybrid approach. So after using IAM to produce our parts, we had to post-process them, and I have to say a big thank you to our partners at Pasco who did a heat treatment in order to obtain the desired hardness prior to machining the final molds. And we also wanted the parts to be machined in order to achieve a specific roughness and accuracy, and of course in order to comply with injection molding process requirements. So they also did the electrical discharge machining, and you can see the final molds after this hybrid approach, first using additive and then machining CNC and electrical discharge machining in this case. So I think that's all from me. I'm happy to take any questions. You can find also my the email of our company here. So yeah, feel free to pop any questions at the chat or to our email. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this very informative presentation. So we are happy to take any question. We go for our last speaker for today, who is Serge Prigent from Institut de Recherche Technologie Jules Verne. He will give us a presentation on one technology dedicated to mold insert with conformal cooling. So, Serge, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you see the slide?
Yes, we can see it. Not in presentation mode yet, but we can see your screen.
I tried the presentation mode, but it doesn't work.
Maybe you have a second screen Okay, it is doubled, so with the presenter view. You can change your view on the top, paramètres d'affichage. You can change by choosing the second option, duplicate. You should be able to change.
Okay, it must be better.
Yes, we can see now full. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, so thank you to give me the opportunity to introduce one technology dedicated to mold insert with conformal cooling. So just a small history. We have found that the WAM technology that is also a part of the wire was developed more than 20 years ago for the manufacturing of Pelton runner. So Pelton runner, as you can see here, the example of the Biedron power plant that is in Switzerland. It is highest head of power plant in the world. It is around 2,000 meters. And the manufacturing, the interest of the manufacturing was to substitute the casting of the runner by a technology that was hybridization at the beginning with a forged disc and multi-layer. You can see here the multi-layer by WAM to build the bucket. So the interest was to have very high resistance material for the dynamic load here in this area, and here the capacity to reduce a lot of ships by machining. So you can imagine that for this runner that is around 5 meters in diameter, it is more than 1 ton of material deposited. So you have seen a few presentations on the DVD. The WAM is dedicated where the material is not in powder but in wire, and we are also a recent development in rod and in bar. And the energy is by heating, and here we use arc heating. So I have a picture here. So it's very simple. It is a power generator, electric power generator that is generally a welding generator with a welding torch here and the welding feeder that delivers the wire and with the power source. And generally, when we want to protect the material, we use shielding gas with a pressure regulator. So it can be applied manually or generally. For a large component, we use a robotic device, and the torch is set directly on the arm of the robot. The properties of the WAM are very interesting. You can see that it is between, for the lot size, it is average. It is here. It is average lot size. It is also average cost, and the part performance is average. So it's very interesting to hybridize it with machining, because you have here in the previous presentation that by printing the near net shape is not available. So it is here the capacity and the accuracy in millimeter. You see that generally the accuracy is around a few millimeters. That is why we have over thickness of a few millimeters compared to turning and compared to finishing, because for the insert the expectation was around 0.02 millimeter. That is far from the capacity to have direct part from DED. So the interest of the WAM is that the part size can be very important. Also the flexibility of the platform and the cost is quite low. So this is very important. And the accuracy, as I explained, we will not obtain the final accuracy or dimensional by WAM, but by association with machining and finishing. So also what is important is that we have a lot of application where we can use the process of WAM. First, it is in assembly, and generally what is important to remind is that when you have assembly, the deposition is generally parallel to the substrate. And we can find here a lot of association possible to build the material. This is that will be helpful for the design we will see. Also, we have a technology that is the buttering. The buttering means that we can associate different material. So here we have an example of different grade of stainless steel, but we have associated carbon steel with stainless steel or other material, and this is also an option that is interesting. And the last one is here we see the cladding. The cladding is covering or the overlay here we have an example of a spherical valve. This is one example of either new component or also for refurbishment. And at the end, the difference with WAM is that we can have the Z deposition. That's why it is perpendicular. I say generally the welding is parallel to the substrate. Here we have a deposition perpendicular to the substrate. That means that we will have multi-layer deposition. I have spoken about the runner, but here we have an example of a bike frame, and in this condition, it is deposit drop by drop. So we can imagine that we have a few thousand of drop to build this bike frame, and here also for energy we have a propeller that is possible to build. So what is important is that the WAM process allows deposited volume from few percent, 1 or 2% in assembly, 100% when you build the totality of the component of the final part. So with this basis, we have proposed, and thanks to Gwenou, to have suggest this process. It was to say an insert. We need a surface for the cavity and conformal cooling. And what we propose is to build the conformal cooling by assembly of slice and the cavity by cladding the surface and with the final machining. So for the vaccine spike, you can see here the insert. The vaccine spike is a quite small component. We have the code available and designed by CDAM. Even in this insert, we have no conformal cooling. That means no 3D cooling, but we have a standard cooling channel. And as it was mentioned, for the supply chain, it was easier for us to have in the very short time the wire in the different composition, and we propose the alternative solution with Soleil C5 steel, that is a martensic steel. And with this, we have also the capacity to provide the wire that was a wire in 410 nickel molybdenum. So what is important also is that, and it will have an importance in the design, is that we have plates available in the RT with 13 millimeter to 5 millimeters. And for the slice you mentioned, it was very important. And also for the harness, we have started with small harness, but with heat treatment, it was possible to increase this for the requirement of the mold. So the process, as I say, first step was to redesign and to optimize the slicing strategy. So I said that the insert was sliced in here. It was 9 slice with the different thickness we have shown before. And we'll see that in the second operation, we machine the slice with in someone the cooling channel, and then we join the different slides. We will highlight it later. So after the joining, we have the conformal cooling of the insert, and we had overlay. So we have 3 overlay here on the top by 1 deposition, and after the machining, and the machining was traditional machining and CNC machine and electrospark machining also, EDM. And at the end, we will show the test. It was a leaking test that we perform on the insert. So what is important is that for the WAM qualification, we have the slicing, and what is important is that we have more slice than expected just because we have only three thickness available. We have the machining of the cooling system. If you imagine that it is not available by tooling, can be manufactured in the same way. The blocks were assembled by 20 millimeter high element, and at the end we add 10 millimeter by additive manufacturing by WAM, and the overlands to take into account the welding start and stop. So as I say, it was not the optimized solution, because the optimized should have been the 3 slices only, a clad only a local clad to be located in one pocket, in the top pocket, and design can be also adjusted to be manufactured directly in tool shop. And same for the upper insert, as it was in between a few slides, we were obliged to manufacture and to have a development qualification for the welding and the pouring of the injection housing. So for the welding, the qualification, we use 2 processes, one by TIG and the second one by MAG. And the welding parameter are here. We use a Fronius generator with the synergy that is CMT 3558. And you have all the parameters. And what is important also to have the overlay is that we can addition the bead, either to have a waving strategy to overlay and to have a better overlay. And here you see that the overlay is quite good. And at the end of the extension, we have a small collapse, and we will show that just to reduce the effect of the extension collapse, we add a transverse bead on the insert. So here you can see the different slices. We have set the different slices and just clamped them, and we have weld them by TIG process. TIG process, and it was a manual process with a Kempi generator with gas for chilling that was Arcal. And as you have here, that it's very difficult to purchase some materials. The assembly of this element were not requiring any additional material. It was directly weld slice between slice, and also to reduce the warping and the distortion. As we have for 7 slices, we have 6 leads. We alternate a top-down welding, and that's why at the end the assembly was very flat with very low distortion. And when the TIG junction of the slice were completed, we perform the WAM. Here, the 10 millimeter WAM by 3 layers. And here we have, you see, we have just the full deposition. We have 5 layers. And at the end, the extension to reduce the collapse, we had a transverse deposition. So we had a specific qualification for the injection housing, because you see the housing was between 3 slices. And when it was assembled by TIG, we set here a first deposition by MAG process, and we refill the hole just to make sure that we will have no leakage or no coolant feed during the injection. So, just a small video, just to see the productivity of the process. So you can see 5 beads and 1 in transverse to reduce the extension. And here, as I say, we have the over thickness that was a few millimeters. And you will see it start around 15 seconds. and just it will give you an idea of the productivity. So the one bid was requiring about less than half a minute, and with 20 bid in less than 10 minutes, we were able to produce the one. Yeah. So you see, it is really very interesting about the productivity. Okay, so at the end, you see the final insert. We have delivered just yesterday 2 sets of insert, two upper and two lower insert. Of course, you see we have some area that is not perfect. We have also to optimize the dimensioning and the best fitting before machining. And at the end, to make sure that the cavity was fully good manufacture, we have a leaking test, and we inject helium, and with the detector we found no leakage. That means that it was able to be set on the mold, on the master mold, and to have the first trial of injection. So if you have some question, you are welcome, and you can read my mail directly on the last slide. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Serge, for the very informative presentation. So we have arrived at the end of our presentations for today. Alberto posed a question that I think is addressed to almost you all, as he's asking if raw materials are only imported or there is an European production. And I think this is quite a wide topic. So I don't know if some of the participants wants to step in and give his or her point of view. And in the meantime, I also like to remind you that we have 2 additional webinars from now till the end of the project. I included in the chat the titles of those that will be organized. The first will be on digitalization of injection molding lines for repurposing. And the last one is supply chain collaboration platform and distribution of critical medical supplies. Panagiotis just wrote a message saying, hello again, everyone. Just wanted to clarify that designs of the mold parts shown in my presentation were kindly provided by our imPURE project partners in Pasco Engineering. Quote, in the moment during my presentation, there is a chance I did not mention it properly. Thank you once again. And of course, we thank you, Panagiotis, for the presentation, all the partners involved, and in this specific case, also our Pasco partner.
Okay, Stefania, just to think, I'm very interested that our participants, partners, can send us the name of some companies that produce or import raw materials, because our project to build a supply chain begins from raw materials. And it's strategic that in our supply chain there is the participation of some companies that produce or import raw materials. We have to think that our project is for our health, for the health of the patients in hospital, but for our health in case of emergency, in case of disaster. And so all technologies are important, but if there isn't the disponibility of raw materials, we can't obtain our results. And so I hope that all the participants can help us to extend our supply chain with the name of some companies that I can contact in my job of dissemination. Okay.
Thank you very much, Alberto. Of course, we will provide the recording from today where also the contacts are given. So any participant can contact directly Alberto, myself, and all the project partners involved to have additional information and to get in contact for further activities that are developed, as this one that Alberto just mentioned. I have a comment from Kate in the chat saying, thank you all. Just a general comment for all the speakers. It is quite impressive that so many additive manufacturing technologies have been exploited within imPURE and enabled the fast-track repurposing of additional manufacturing industrial lines. Thank you, Kate, for the comment. Indeed, the work that has been done is quite impressive, and we are quite confident that the results that will be achieved will bring benefits to the current situation and future ones that we may face. Injection molding lines, not additive manufacturing. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I would like then, if there are no additional questions, to thank all the speakers that have presented today, to thank also all the participants that attended the webinar. We will get in contact for further webinars that will be organized, and as said, we are completely available for any question that you may have subsequent to this webinar. So the contacts are given, and please get in contact with us, since one of the topic of this project is indeed to engage with external stakeholders that deals with the topics that we face, in order to also ensure development just right after the end of the project. So we are more than happy to get in contact with you, and as I said, we are always available. The recording will be available in our project website and social media channels, so please follow us for further communication and information. Alberto, if you want to give some last words.
First of all, I want only have your attention. So thank you very much for the participation, for our partners. Stefania just told about the next webinar. I hope that the participation to the next webinar may be so important like today. And I thank Stefania in particular for the great job, for the collaboration. And if there aren't other questions, we can close our webinar, okay?
Thank you, Alberto. And one last big thank goes to the project coordinator, the National Technical University of Athens, that guides us from the scientific and also administrative point of view in the project. So thank you. And we get in contact in the next period. Okay?
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much, Stefania, for the meeting and
you.
Organization, and thank you all for the participation. Have
Thank
a nice day. Bye-bye.
Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks to all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.